The following program is for informational purposes only. Cryptocurrency is a new science, so do your homework before putting money on the line. Today is February 25th, 2014. Welcome to episode 87 of Let's Talk Bitcoin, a twice-weekly show about the ideas, people, and projects building the new digital economy and the future of money. Today, we've got a show that's a snapshot of the current scene. Last week, Stephanie, Andreas, and I broke new ground and had the embattled Charlie Shrems on as a guest host that wound up being part interview, part tell-all. This all happened against the backdrop of extreme uncertainty coming out of MountGox, and as the episode came close to airing, increasingly more information was coming to light. And so, late on Friday evening, I turned on the recorder again with Charlie Shrems, and eventually David Perry of Coding in My Sleep, as the hits just kept on coming with the news out of MountGox. So, take this show for what it is, a moment frozen in time during what might be the death of the venerable MountGox. My name is Adam B. Levine, and I'm pleased to introduce the other hosts here at LTB, Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
Hi. And
Andreas M. Antonopoulos.
Hello.
Today we've also got a special guest, Charlie Shrems, a founding member of the Bitcoin Foundation and a guy trapped in Brooklyn at this point in time. Charlie, how you doing?
Hey, I could be better, but not so bad.
Yeah, you've had a wild couple weeks, huh, Charlie?
Yeah.
I don't know if people are familiar with your case, but you basically have been the target of a pretty serious investigation with some charges, and it's really affected your life, huh?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was speaking at a conference in Amsterdam, their CES, their Consumer Electronics show was very big. And as soon as I landed home, JFK Airport in New York, I was immediately arrested by a task force of over 7 agents from the DEA and IRS, put into federal prison overnight before my arraignment the next day.
This came as a complete shock to you?
Complete shock to me, because we had been working with state government of New York for over 2 years in my capacity of BitInstant, helping them develop the idea of the bit license that people are familiar with, developing the ideas for the hearings. I was the one who helped them invite and create the panels. I was supposed to be testifying at the New York State hearings as well. And this is a political battle, I guess. I mean, I was arrested the day before the hearings, and my invitation redacted, obviously. I was sitting in prison during the hearings. So we're not really sure what's going on.
Do you regret, trying to work on that?
It kind of sucks that a lot of the information that is being used against me, I voluntarily gave to them. The evidence comes down to pretty much emails, and most of the stuff is taken completely out of context, and they're not going to say joke, but it's scary. It's serious crimes if someone did them, Money laundering is not a joke. Operating a money transmitter business is not a joke either. These are scary, scary charges. And the thing is, the time period that the alleged crimes took place was in early 2012, over a year and a half ago. We changed the BitInstant model since then. I started the Bitcoin Foundation. I spoke to local, state, and federal regulators. Why I signed proffer agreements. Proffer agreements are basically when you go in there and you give them information, and they can't use this information against you. But what they did was they used this information as leads to use against me in the future. So I pretty much dug my own grave here. And people warned me about this. They said, Charlie, they will come after you. And I was naive. And I said, no, I'm out in the open. I'm not a criminal. Everyone knows who I am. I make speeches. I go out there, and I'm very pro working with the state on Bitcoin. We need regulation. There are things that need to happen. You need to, if you're going to operate a company in the United States, you need to follow the laws legally or work to change them. People warned me. They said, you should stay under the radar. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be a Bitcoin evangelist. And they were all right. Hit me in the ass.
Do you still think Bitcoin needs regulation?
I think that Bitcoin needs to work in cooperation with authorities. And what that is, I think that, I'll just give you an example. The state regulators about a year ago said to me, Charlie, how should we regulate Bitcoin? And I said, first of all, you need someone like me in your office explaining to you that you can't regulate Bitcoin. However, you can regulate effectively Bitcoin companies that operate in the space financial service industry. That you can do. And they said, all right, so should we apply the existing money transmitter laws to them? And I said, well, no, because those laws are not transparent. It takes years to get a license. You need over $5 million. And even though we live in the United States of America, you need a different license for every single state. Whereas if you live in Canada, no matter what province you live in, You just need one license and it works in the whole country. Same thing in Europe. If you have a license in Poland, you can work with every European country. So in the United States, why can't we have that?
Why set up a Bitcoin business in New York? Not blaming you or anything, but do you wish that you had just gone a different route and gone to Panama or Canada or something?
My understanding was that I'm from New York, born and raised in New York, and for a lot of roots and ties to the New York community here, going back since I was a kid. Very close with a lot of people here, and my family and friends, are here. And if you're going to operate in Panama or Canada, if you want to be in the U.S. market, you still need those licenses. So it's not going to change anything if I go out. If I want to launch in Canada and just want to get the European market or the Canadian market, that's one thing. But there's such a huge Bitcoin market in the United States that you have to do it. So I went full frontal, went after it.
Have you ever read Atlas Shrugged?
I didn't read it, but I'm really familiar with Ayn Rand.
Sometimes I feel like the Bitcoin world is like mirroring the plot of Atlas Shrugged. I've said it a couple times before, but...
No, it's true. There was a quote on Reddit, and I put it on my Facebook wall yesterday. It's a quote that what she said was, the first motor was considered foolish. The airplane was considered impossible. The power loom was considered vicious. Anesthesia was considered sinful. But the men of unborrowed vision went ahead. They fought, they suffered, and they paid, but they won.
That's a
and
good
it's
quote.
like, if you ever read what Western Union's executives back in the day thought about the telephone, it's hilarious. When people are in something, they're blind to the next phase. And I think intentionally because it could replace them.
Mm-hmm. So Charlie, looking at this from the inside, really, do you see this as an attack against Bitcoin, or is this more likely large bureaucracies with inertia and individuals trying to make a career out of adding Bitcoin to their prosecutor's resume?
The latter.
This is not a warning shot for the Bitcoin ecosystem. We're going to come and pick you off one by one.
If you're not doing anything illegal, then you don't have anything to worry about.
Who's not doing something illegal?
I should take that back. But what I'm getting at here is there was a reason that they went after me, Andreas, like you said in the Joe Rogan show. And there was a reason that they arrested me the day before the hearings at the airport. If you read the news articles, they didn't say that I was landing. It said I was arrested at the airport as if I was fleeing. They did all this on purpose.
To help a prosecutor gain the publicity that will help with his state Senate run, for example?
Exactly. Oddly enough, how did the press know I was going to be arrested? The press was at the airport. Who told them? My lawyers didn't know. No, who knew? The only person who knew they were going to be arresting me is the prosecutor's office. Attaching things like money laundering to it, they want to make me seem like a criminal. Why? I don't know.
It's much harder to go after some of the real money laundering criminals in New York because they have political power and can fight
have
back.
Licenses.
No, I mean, it's not about licenses. It's about raw political power. They can make a prosecutor's career, destroy it. They can absolutely destroy the career of a prosecutor. And if a prosecutor decides they want to go after someone who, say, has destroyed 1 million families by mortgage foreclosure fraud, then that prosecutor is going to find themselves in very deep trouble very quickly.
It's a club. The way it works is you have assistant U.S. attorney. Like, for example, in my situation, you have Preet Bharara. Right? Preet Bharara is the U.S. attorney appointed by Barack Obama. Now, there are other U.S. attorneys, but he is one below Eric Holder. And when Eric Holder, the attorney general, they were thinking about him resigning, the first person on the list of taking his place was this guy, Preet Bharara. The reason is Preet Bharara is the U.S. attorney of the Southern District of New York. Southern District of New York is the largest district in the country, and it gets all the financial cases.
Of which there have been surprisingly few in the last 5 years, all the financial cases. And if yours is the biggest case they're prosecuting, that's something wrong with our justice system.
You have this guy, tax holder money, to go after a 24-year-old kid from Brooklyn over nothing more than $1 million. And it's not the money laundering that we all understand it as. It's not money laundering that they're going after me where you take money, you launder it, and then you wash it and try to hide sources. This is Section 2A of the money laundering statute. Section 2A, I'm not super familiar with it, but it's where you help move money internationally and you conceal it or some way or another. I don't understand it specifically, but it's not the standard money laundering that we all know it as.
Charlie, just so we're clear, do you deny that these charges against you? I mean, like, are you fighting these charges against you? These are incorrect charges? We're talking about how you're being targeted, but we haven't actually talked about whether or not you're actually saying that it's not true.
This is the money laundering statute that they're going after me for. Section 2A, the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, it says, whoever transport, transmits, or transfers, or attempts to transport, transmit, or transfer monetary instrument of funds from a place in the United States or throughout a place outside the United States or to a place in the United States or through a place outside the United States, A, with the intent to promote carrying on of specified unlawful activity. Charges come down to this. This guy, BTC King, was allegedly advertising on Silk Road the ability to buy Bitcoin. This guy allegedly was on Silk Road advertising buy Bitcoin with cash. What he did was he would then allegedly send customers to BitInstant. Customers would then use BitInstant not to buy Bitcoin, to merely fund their MountGox accounts. Because I don't know if you know, BitInstant never sold Bitcoin. You merely put money into your MountGox account. So we had money in our MountGox account. We transfer it to your MountGox account. So then we put money into their MountGox account. At that point, the BitInstant transaction was completed, over. Now, at that point, the customer can then use that money to buy Bitcoin. Once they bought the Bitcoin, they can then send the Bitcoin to their Silk Road wallet. Once it was in their Silk Road wallet, they can then use it to buy illicit goods on Silk Road.
Did these customers look any different to your company when they were
Absolutely
coming in?
not.
Like, here's the other thing. I mean, I visited the Silk Road back in the days.
Be careful admitting that.
No, I visited it in order to see what was on there, and I wanted
For
to
research purposes.
Well, no, purposes only.
You know, I had no interest in the product they were offering, but I really did want to see what was offered because I was curious. You know, what is the breadth of product? How I was reading things on the news we were talking about on the show, so I visited the site and I logged on. Well, here's the interesting thing. One thing I noticed is that, yes, there were obviously a lot of a broad variety of illegal products on there, but there were also a lot of legal products. I mean, Silk Road was not just selling drugs. They were also selling
you can buy shirts,
banners
clothing,
and T-shirts and baseball cap, pins and mugs and things like that. In fact, I met someone who asked me if they could take my Safe Paper Wallet product, which is essentially just colored pre-printed sheets of paper for making prettier paper wallets. It's now discontinued, but at the time they asked me if they could sell it for me on the Silk Road. And essentially this was of a merchant who was selling T-shirts and things like that, as far as I know.
Interesting.
They said, you know, I sell on the Silk Road because as a merchant site or a market site, I've got buyers who have trust metrics and reviews behind them. And I've got a captive audience. I've got a large audience of people who already have money in the system on Silk Road and therefore essentially can make impulse purchases of things like mugs and T-shirts and Bitcoin pins, things that are perfectly legal. So this was a merchant who was selling legal stuff and just using Silk Road because that was a relatively vibrant marketplace with people who had reviews on it. It
was really a drummed down version of eBay.
Exactly.
I mean, without all the rules and also the fees. eBay takes like 30%.
Obviously, 80-90% probably of the products on there were products you wouldn't find on eBay. And, you know, reading through the list was pretty eye-opening for me. But
I didn't even know half those drugs existed, right?
Yeah, but I had to look some of those things up on Wikipedia. But at the same time, you know, there was a percentage of products that were perfectly legal. In fact, I think one of the users of the site who had their funds seized is now suing to get it unseized under the claim that they only use the site to purchase legal products. Even the claim that someone who has an account, or even more so, someone who has money on Silk Road and has used it as a customer, that guarantees that they were buying drugs, I don't think is true. There was a substantial non-infringing or non-illegal use going on. It wasn't zero, whatever that means.
I agree with you 100%. There are so many steps removed if you can make the case against me, you should be able to take down any person who runs an ATM machine. Because more often, someone who's using that ATM machine is going to be pulling out cash in order to buy drugs on the street or anything illegal, for that matter.
Well, I think there's also a substantial difference between the allegations against you, which involve, from what I read at least, selling Bitcoin to someone who sold Bitcoin to someone who possibly bought drugs.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about buyers of drugs. Then the allegations, for example, against Wachovia or HSBC, where they were delivering suitcases of cash and laundering suitcases of cash for the most violent drug cartels in the world. At the time when there was effectively almost a civil war in northern Mexico between the Sinaloa cartel and government forces that caught up and killed 19,000 people, most of them civilians.
Yeah, but the government admitted, they already admitted to this. I forgot who made the statement the other day, but he's like, yeah, the reason we didn't arrest these guys is because if we arrested HSBC executives, they would do their banking license and the banks would fail. Too big to fail.
Yeah, too big to fail is too big to jail. But again, I think beyond the scale, and I don't think that the scale as much is necessarily the issue, because at least in my mind, a crime that has a victim or that victimizes people in the most horrible way, it doesn't really matter the scale, although, of course, we are talking about things that are 600,000 times larger in scale.
Yeah.
But even without the scale, I think there is a fundamental difference between the idea that someone who allegedly sold Bitcoin thrice removed from a potential buyer of recreational narcotics versus someone who's funneling money directly to the cartels. That's a qualitative difference, I think, that's important. And it speaks to prosecutorial discretion, right? I mean, there's a reason prosecutors have discretion, and it's not so they can pick the cases that give them the best resume with the lowest political risk. So they can pursue the cases that cause the most harm to society.
One could make the case, not that I'm making the case, because this interview probably will be used against me in the court of law. So I'm saying this, not me, prosecutors. A case could be made, not I'm making the case, but a case could be made that Silk Road did a service to the drug industry, because what you're doing is all these people are getting their drugs from somewhere, whether it's Silk Road or it's on the street, they're getting their drugs somewhere. Now, would you rather them getting it from the street, supporting drug cartels with dirty needles, spreading HIV, all these negative connotations, money that's probably going to be used to kill people, or would you rather them buy it on a safe marketplace, clean reviews, high quality, from people who are probably growing this stuff or making this stuff in their own homes and not part of larger drug cartels kidnapping people?
Well, I think that's a question, unfortunately, that they've answered several times before. They would much rather that there be the harm.
Right. This is really the underlying issue, which is that the war on X is usually a great excuse to do enormous amounts of fundraising, essentially unlimited budgets. In this particular case, these online marketplaces threaten the cartels. They threaten the cartels more than they threaten any other organization. They don't threaten the viability of drug enforcement because, in fact, if anything, they provide a very easy trail and a very easy way to honeypot the co-conspirators involved in running the site.
Imagine Silk Road worked. Imagine.
Yeah, it threatens the big cartels. It takes away their funding, because if an addict who has no choice but to fulfill their addiction has a choice between doing that dark street corner with someone with a gun or a knife or a violent criminal versus via USPS, no contest.
Right. And imagine like states can issue medical marijuana licenses, and someone can upload their license ID number onto Silk Road, therefore legally allowed to buy marijuana on Silk Road. Imagine a situation like that. That would effectively wipe out marijuana industry. And what's the most imported drug from Mexico is marijuana. Where the cartels make all their money right now.
But it really looks good on a prosecutor's resume. If they can combine drugs, money laundering, and Bitcoin in one sentence, That looks better, at least to their superiors and the people making the appointments, and to a certain section of voters. Now, to me, it would look better if they frog-marched a bunch of bank executives out of Wall Street for destroying the lives of millions of people while stealing trillions of dollars.
Exactly. Like, I'm going to get a jury, right? If this case goes to trial, they're going to pick a jury of like old ladies who just hear drugs, put this kid away. It's a scary thought.
I've been on a jury with old ladies who are much smarter than the prosecutor, and
prosecutor has in federal case, the prosecutor pretty much has final say over who's going to be on the jury and who's not.
Yeah, that's the difference. I was on a jury in a different country where a case like that was prosecuted, and I can tell you the jury of the peers knew very well what was harmful and what was not.
I'm learning that state cases are much more fair than federal ones are, because federal prison is nicer. People prefer to be tried federally.
I don't have much faith in juries, but good luck, Charlie.
Yeah, I hope you actually make it to a jury, because unfortunately what we've seen with the justice system, especially in the federal courts, is that 99% of these cases get plea bargains because they present you with an impossible choice. Take a risk against a 60-year sentence versus pleading out for a year or two.
That's the whole thing. That's what it is.
It's blackmail.
And I can't discuss the merits of it, but it would be face a 30-year sentence or work with us and probably get no time, but still plead for everything. And now I have to basically plead. I would have to plead to things that I didn't do,
which would help the prosecutor's resume
and kill my future.
Put a black mark on Bitcoin.
This is Chris Joseph bringing you news on Next, the first true second-generation cryptocurrency for February 25th, 2014. The creation of online tools for Next continues. In addition to this week's implementation of merchant services on coinpayments.net and the proof-of-concept creation of an automated Next to Dogecoin gateway, mynext.info has created Next's first secure online wallet. Available at wallet.mynxt.info, this service lets you create an online Next wallet with nothing but an email address and a password. No downloads or clients are needed, and you can begin receiving and sending Next right away. The site also features an alerter service, which will send you an email when Next is sent to or from your Next account. For more information on Next, head to nextcrypto.org or get started with your online Next wallet at wallet.mynxt.info. Stay tuned for more news on Next in the next Let's Talk Bitcoin broadcast.
I was disappointed, Charlie, honestly, with the response that you got from the Bitcoin Foundation. I don't know if you want to talk about that. It seems like, you've already been tried in the court of public opinion as far as they're concerned.
Well, the foundation is unfortunately right now, there are a lot of people in the internal foundation politics, unfortunately. And I have so much support from a lot of board members, but I have board members who are out to get me. And they don't, they want the power. It's a power trip. And unfortunately,
what power?
Unfortunately, well, money. The foundation has a lot of money, and with money, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Foundation has a ton of money, and the foundation, at the end of the day, is my baby. I started that thing in a room with Gavin, and the foundation will exist beyond the current board. The foundation itself is an amazing thing. The people that are involved in it and are running it today may or may not be. I mean, look at the response to MountGox. There's no response to MountGox. If I was running the foundation right now, what I'd do is I'd go out there and I'd send one of my foundation board members to Tokyo and sitting with MountGox every day. And the foundation should be posting regular updates over what's going on with MountGox. The foundation should be treating MountGox as the federal government treated big banks during the 2008 crisis.
I think that's an interesting proposal for the foundation to do, but you've been with the foundation, like you said, since the beginning. I've never seen it take any type of action.
The minute I got arrested, the first thing I did was resign because I don't want to bring the foundation, drag them into my own legal situation.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that, Charlie. I'm just saying that there have been things like this before that have seemed like maybe the foundation should engage on, and they haven't. I'm just saying, really? Right. You would have actually sent a board member to...
This is the fifth Goxing. I mean, where was the foundation during the previous four Goxings?
I was working on it. I was working on the MountGox issue. I was actively working within the foundation, and I was very close to a resolution on that before I got arrested. very close to resolution. Elizabeth Boucher and I have been really, really good together working on a lot of these. No one in the foundation has any balls right now except for John Matonis. But John Matonis works for the board, unfortunately. And the board is just kind of like leaning back and not doing much.
So why do you think that is? What do you? It seems like the opportunity for the foundation to really step out and lead on a lot of these issues is sort of passing by, because there are other organizations that have international goals, I guess, who seem like they're coming up. I mean, has it just taken a long time to kind of spin up the organization to the point where you really can address things like this?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the mentality has just been things will blow over. If you look at the MountGox Peter Vicenis issue, who is the chairman of the foundation is Peter. So obviously he's going to want to not do anything in that regard. And then people are saying kick Mark off of the Bitcoin Foundation board. Mark has never been to one meeting ever.
I publicly called for that.
He hasn't been in one meeting. He wasn't even at the founding. The only reason he's considered a founder is because they put money and they gave us a domain name.
I was one of the people who not only signed that petition, but publicly called for Mark to resign a while ago. And not because of the problems with Gox or the bugs or whatever, but because of the immediate reaction of putting out a press release that threw Bitcoin under the bus and willing to sacrifice Bitcoin to protect his own incompetence. I mean, that to me, that was the final straw. And you can make mistakes. You can be a useless businessman, and the market will address that. But you turn around and try to blame Bitcoin as a protocol and say there's a fundamental flaw in Bitcoin in a public forum. And he actually re-upped that a couple of days ago, going in front of the Wall Street Journal, and made even worse statements in front of the Wall Street Journal that quite happily reported them as fact. And that is a direct violation of the responsibilities of a director.
I mean, we don't need to go into the specifics of transaction malleability, but honestly, could have been fixed a very long time ago. And look at the other exchanges; they fixed it in hours. Bitstamp was up with withdrawals again within a day or two.
Yeah,
it's not a difficult thing to fix. It is as simple as assigning your own transaction ID to withdrawals. What is MountGox doing? Why is it taking them 2 weeks to do this? Why are they posting updates saying that they're moving their address? Like, the whole thing, honestly, is just a joke. It's a joke. So it's nothing more than a joke.
It's a joke that is now cost Bitcoin investors about $3 billion. That's what Karpeles has done.
And I give so much benefit of the doubt. CoinDesk asked me yesterday, what do you think of Mark? And I gave him my praises. And Mark is a nice guy. He has a kid and a wife. I know them. I know Mark personally. He's not a scammer. He's not. But honestly, after that announcement this morning, I am so furious. I'm so angry. I don't know how much I can defend them anymore.
It's a fine line to walk. I've certainly made the point as well that there's no indication of fraud. There's no indication of solvency issues. And Karpeles has never dealt in bad faith. I mean, he is a visionary and an innovator who led the way and gave us price discovery when there was none. He just failed 2 years ago to recognize his own limitations and appoint a professional CEO to do the job that needs to be done.
Proposal for MountGox is this, if they're listening. Shut down the exchange. Let people withdraw their money. Relaunch as a new exchange with a new name that's not using PHP, because PHP sucks and it's a whole other conversation. Let people withdraw their money. Give people the choice to try your new exchange. And I guarantee you people will. People will try it. But give them the choice. Don't force them. Don't hold our money in contempt. I have money there too. I have a lot of money there that I need it. I have legal fees to pay for, and I can't pay for them.
So kind of circling back around here, you've had a hell of a journey, Charlie. I got to tell you, I mean, like you were kind of one of the very earliest people into Bitcoin, with your name out there with BitInstant. Before that, you were a member of the community for a long time. Where do you think that we're going with this? It's hard to talk timeframes that are longer than, say, 6 months, but let's call it a year. What do you think the Bitcoin space is going to look like in a year?
We're going to see a lot. I think that the last year was really a big year of regulation, and Bitcoin really got on the map of states, of governments, of regulators. You see 2013, so many countries came out and either outright banned Bitcoin or licensed, or made it something that needs to be licensable, or said it's fully legal, we don't care about it. it was the year of regulation and government involvement. 2014 is going to be a huge infrastructure year. And I said that at the end in my holiday message on Christmas Day. I put out my holiday message that I do every year, and I said it. And we're already seeing it start to happen because MountGox is falling. Other companies are going to replace MountGox, or MountGox will replace itself by something else. So we're going to see big companies launch, like Circle. We're going to see Coinbase up its game. We're going to see I'm working on a secret project is going to come out soon. There are a lot of new companies that I think are going to launch. I think that Satoshi gave us that empty island, and it's up to us to build the bridges, roads, tunnels. And I think that 2014 is going to be the year of the railroad. What was the biggest infrastructure project in the United States was the railroad. I think is one of the biggest projects, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And that was a huge infrastructure, not just for the railroad itself, but building cities around the railroad and building highways to follow the railroad. And all these different things are one of the biggest infrastructure projects in the country. But I think that that's what we're going to see this year.
In all of this, I have to say, Charlie, given everything you're facing, you come back with just unstoppable enthusiasm and passion about Bitcoin. And my hat's off to you just for that. Bitcoin exists on its own. It is independent. And this is one of the reasons I think why Satoshi left so early on. Because he didn't want to be seen as Bitcoin himself, as Satoshi being Bitcoin. Bitcoin it's very hard for people to grasp this concept because you need something physical. You need a leader. If you look at ancient religions, right? Ancient religions needed idols because they needed to envision what God looked like physically. It's a very hard concept for a human mind to grasp, but Bitcoin exists on its own with or without me. I could die tomorrow. I could be thrown. Bitcoin will still exist. But we need good actors like me and you to help push it in the right direction. If we all give up on Bitcoin, Andreas, if we all say, you know what, we're scared, we're going to go to jail, we all give up, Bitcoin is going to go right back down into the underground and is going to go right back down into the Silk Road-ish actors and stuff like that and the money launderers and the criminals. And it's just going to be terrible. We're going to be ruining a great innovation. We're going to be ruining something amazing. We have to work so hard to bring it above ground and to make it for good use.
Knowing what you know now and having gone through what you've gone through, if you could go back in time and give Charlie Shrem the Younger some advice, what would that be?
Hire a compliance officer. That's what I would give myself the advice, because me being the compliance officer of BitInstant, because I was the only employee of BitInstant, so I was de facto the compliance officer, not knowing enough about the money transmitter, regulations in the U.S. is what brought me down.
Thank you very much for that perspective.
Companies need to take regulations seriously because there are companies right now that are still acting, right? And I hope you guys are listening to this, companies, because you think that because I got arrested that you're going clear, free and clear. They are going after you. They are investigating everyone. Everyone is on their radar. They are on the Bitcoin Talk forums. They are on Reddit. They are in the IRC channel. They are listening to this interview. They have big budgets. There is a government task force specifically for Bitcoin. Be careful. Don't do anything illegal. Follow the law or work to change them. That's what advice I can give you. But until you change them, you have to follow them. Ignorance will not keep you out of jail. It will not. Cool. Can we end it with that song, the Ode to Satoshi song?
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys did. That was an awesome song.
We can for sure do that. I'm glad you like it too, man. That's my fucking favorite song that's come out so far.
Yeah, mine too. I was blown away.
Well, Satoshi Nakamoto, that's a name I love to say. And we don't know much about him, but he came to save the day. When he wrote about the way things are and the way things ought to be, he gave us all a protocol this world had never seen. Oh, Bitcoin, as you're going into the old blockchain. Oh, Bitcoin, I know you're going to reign, till everybody knows, till everybody knows your name. Down the road it will be told about the death of old MountGox, about traders trading altar coins and miners mining blocks. But them good old boys back in Illinois and on down through Tennessee, see, they don't care to be a millionaire, they're just wanting to be free. Oh, Bitcoin, as you're going into the old blockchain. Oh, Bitcoin, I know you're going to reign, till everybody knows, till everybody knows your name. signs of virtuality, a promise to deliver us from age-old tyranny. Oh, Bitcoin, as you're going into the old blockchain. Oh, Bitcoin, I know you're going to reign, till everybody knows, till everybody knows your name. Till everybody knows, till everybody knows your.
Give me some exposure.
Everybody knows your name. Sing it. Oh, Lord, pass me some more. Oh, Lord, before I have to go. Oh, Lord, pass me some more. Oh, Lord, before I have to go.
So now we fast forward a week for live late night analysis, the night of the leaked release. Charlie, it's February 24th right now. It's 10:34 p.m. Pacific time. We've been talking about MountGox, and I figured it probably was good to get your thoughts on it since you seem to have some information. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's about 1:30 in the morning. I'm having a drink. It's been a long day.
So tell me about that. How has this long day been?
It's been tough. I've been on the phone with a lot of people from friends in Austria and Australia and the Caribbean and California and New York, trying to calm people down and give whatever information I can out. The MountGox withdrawal thing really got me angry. And the fact that MountGox blamed the Bitcoin protocol and played the blame game pissed off a lot of us, including Gavin, who wrote a blog post about it. And I guess we may have been naive and we may have not seen the signs, or I guess felt that it was better to believe that MountGox wasn't falling apart than to believe they were. And all the information that came out today, it's all unverified at the moment. We don't know. We don't know what's true and what's not true. The market's definitely reacting. The price of Bitstamp is down to $400 right now. Who knows how low it'll go? It's a scary night. The scariest part is that so many friends and family had funds in MountGox. People are sending me messages that they were going to use, the 10 or 14 Bitcoins they had to pay for tuition. And I feel bad for the guys who lost thousands of coins, but I feel worse for the people who lost 10 to 20 Bitcoins.
To be clear, we are talking about something that is very much not confirmed at this point, and this is based off of a paper, off of a PDF that was shared that claims to be an internal strategy document that basically details the reforming of MountGox. Is that correct?
Yes. So
okay.
Unfortunately, a lot of what's in the document coincides to the information that I had already known over the past few days.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because I agree with you. It does correspond to some of the information that I have too, like the rebranding thing. One of the things that's interesting about this is that MountGox is rebranding towards a brand that is just Gox. And I thought that was a little strange at first because because they only bought the domain actually a couple of days ago. And the guy talking about it says that he actually approached MountGox about them buying it. So it's not like it was even their idea.
I think that they chose that domain name for better or lack of a better one to choose from. A few days ago, I was on your podcast and I said, MountGox guys, if you're listening, this is what I think you should do. Change your name, totally rebrand everything, new exchange, new everything. Remember I said that?
Yeah.
One of the things I said also on your podcast was that I called to the foundation to get more involved in MountGox and to physically go to Tokyo. Do you remember me saying that?
Yes, I do. And actually, I was going to play it along with this because I figured this would kind of be an addendum to it.
And I said that. And as soon as I got off the call, I emailed the founding members of the Bitcoin Foundation. Now, it's true that half of the board members now are part of the founding member team. So I emailed all the founding members, including Peter Vicenis, myself, Patrick Merck, Roger Veer, Gavin, and Mark and Gonzag, and I think one other person. So 7 founding members, and I emailed all, and John Matonis. And I said, guys, let's have a call Sunday night because we need to figure out what our strategy is here. We need to all be on the same page. And if you, as a board, need to have a vote on Monday, then you need to have a vote on Monday. But let's kind of all be on the same page here. Through all of this, I've kind of had Mark's ear. Mark and I worked together very closely in the BitInstant days early on. And when very few people knew about Bitcoin, Mark and I became friends. And I know his wife, and I told you I know his family and everything. And I never thought him to be a scammer or a fraud. Maybe I did, but it was very hard for me to believe, because when you know someone personally, when you play with their children, when you eat dinner with their family, it's hard to think that they're a fraudster, right? It's hard. It's hard to have that in your head. Really difficult. And I really struggled, because when you think of people that are scammers or fraudsters, you say these are guys that are fleeing, that are in the Cayman Islands or whatever, and they're all over the place, and they're not real people, and they're
right. Mark wasn't going anywhere. He's stable, and he, like you said, he has a family and he has something to lose. I completely agree with that. Can we talk about the information in this document that you say corresponds with information you have? Because I'd be curious to compare notes on that. Let me take a sec here and pull it up. Hang on.
Call this founders meeting, and we got on a call. Usually it's just Gonzag on this call. Mark's legally allowed as a founding member to have a proxy. And during this call, it was all of us, including Mark, Gonzag, and Roger Ver, sitting in MountGox's offices. And on that call, the board was still very kept out of the dark on what was going on. But from the kind of the words that was exchanged, we garnered that MountGox, by stepping down from board seat of the foundation and having Roger there as an advisor, and the word NDA being thrown around, and the word rebranding being thrown around, and the word resignation being thrown around, we all decided that what we were going to assume from this meeting was that Mark was deciding to step down from MountGox, and that new management was being involved, and that Roger was involved somehow in bringing together a possible new buyer to MountGox, and that some sort of rebranding or a renewal of MountGox was taking place on this Sunday night. And now today's Monday night, today's Tuesday morning / Monday night, just for those who are listening. So this is 24 hours later. That all took place, and we kind of all left that call happy, because Mark stepped down from the foundation, which was a very honorable move, and he was stepping down from MountGox. And we all assumed that buyers were being involved, and that MountGox was solvent, because who would buy a company that was insolvent, and that everything would be okay. And that's what we understood from Sunday night. And then Monday comes along, and this document's been released. And I was the first person on Twitter tweeting to the 2-bit idiot, the guy who Ryan, who actually released the first blog post. And I was the first person saying, dude, prove who you are. Prove that this document exists. Prove yourself, because this is very detrimental to the community. And I called him out on it. And he actually called my cell phone. And turns out I actually knew who this guy was. We had been speaking before, but he never told me that this is who he was. And he showed me the document. And unfortunately, now I'm inclined to believe that this document is real.
Let's talk about that. I'm looking at the document right now. It is the crisis strategy draft, and it has both the old MountGox logo on it, sort of faded in the background, and the new Gox logo on it, which is a mountain. I confirmed that this branding is actually branding that they've been working on. So the branding is, in fact, legitimate at first glance. And it appears to, at this point, also only be internal. So that does lend some credibility to this in my eyes. It's a kind of strangely worded document in a lot of places. Really, it seems to be taking a lot of responsibility. And that's something that I've never seen MountGox do. Oddly enough, on that note, on the note that I do have Mark's ear, I said, Mark, the draft just surfaced. Problem is, if you blame Bitcoin again, the core users will all hate you, and the media will report Bitcoin is broken on your word. It's shitty advice, Mark, you have to receive, but I think it's true. I've always been honest with you. And he said, I know. Okay, and so this was you telling him that he has to resign? No, this is a few hours ago, me telling Mark that you have to take responsibility for your issues and blame Bitcoin. I think that's plausible. The strange part to me is that this seems to have come about really fast. It just seems like this is, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
What do you mean? Which part?
Well, I just mean there was a time frame. I mean, I guess this does look like it was put together for right now. It says now to February 25th. So today is February 24th. So that implies again that this document was written, just days ago, because we haven't even. This
document was written last week.
It was written last week.
Yeah.
Okay. And the time frame on the gox.com purchase would have been 3 days ago. I guess that does make sense if we're talking about a deal that started being made, like a week or two ago. Okay, yeah, that's plausible too. It reads like a quickly written document. Do you have any comments on, is there anything else in here that's making you think this is proprietary information only? The fact that it's on here is a sign.
People are saying that the document is poorly written in bad English. And that's just because I think the person who wrote it was Gonzag, who his English is not that good.
This corresponds with kind of how you know that they operate.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think this is real?
Unfortunately, I do.
Let's talk about that for a second. One of the problems I've had with Ryan, the coverage of this issue, is that he was really hyperbolic. He basically said this is the end of Bitcoin. And that seems like it's patently not the case to me. It seems like this is a system that doesn't have things like bailouts simply cleaning itself out. And yeah, it's going to suck for people. Like you said, people have money in there, and that's a painful thing. But at the same time, MountGox has had problems for years. And so at some point, don't they have to fail? Don't they have to go away in order to do this?
If they went down when no one had money in there, then that's one thing. But the fact that they went down when people had money there, that's the worst part.
Well, I agree with that, but isn't this the point? People are going to say about this, as they're already saying, that this is the end of Bitcoin. That Bitcoin has been destroyed, it's been proven, blah, blah, blah. And we know that those things aren't true. Bitcoin isn't about MountGox. MountGox is the weakest part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. And really, they've been out of their league for years. They've just had enough momentum that they haven't had to actually recognize that fact.
People that are selling Bitcoin right now are the ones who are in it short and who are scared and who have too much to lose. I haven't sold one Bitcoin. In fact, I don't even have a trading account anywhere to sell any Bitcoin. And I'm assuming that you haven't sold any Bitcoin either. And most of the people I know haven't been selling either.
Right. No, I've actually been buying, like a lot of people. I intentionally put myself in risk in MountGox because I kind of just figured that this is another continuation of the problems that they've always had, which is that they're slower than everybody else to do everything. But that's the thing, is that this isn't a complete wipe. This isn't everybody in MountGox has lost everything. They're saying here that they're going to take a 1 month to restructure and then come back, and that they're fixing all the problems that I've actually had is my primary complaint.
The problem with that is if you look at their assets, it's 30%? 20%, I don't know of what they actually owe everyone of the customer deposits. That's the scariest part.
Okay, let me look at these numbers for a second. I hadn't looked at those.
So they had their assets are 32 million USD plus 2,000 Bitcoin. What's 2,000 Bitcoin in current price?
Wait a second. They only have 2,000 Bitcoin is what?
I forget, it's $1 million. So they have $33 million, right? But their liabilities look like it's more like $55 million plus 700 plus another $150 million worth. You're talking about not even 20%. So they have.
This document implies that they have no cold storage wallets.
They said that their cold storage wallet was leaked. The whole thing was leaked.
The whole thing was leaked. Okay, let's talk about leaking, because I'm very curious about this particular
This is my
issue.
biggest skeptical part of the whole thing. The math does not add up.
Yeah.
David Perry from Coding in My Sleep and I have spent hours, a few hours ago, going through the numbers, and it just doesn't make any sense at all. I'll read you what our analysis is. This is what we're thinking.
Okay. I was going to say, what do you feel about, do you have an interest in pulling in David Perry to the conversation?
But yeah, essentially this was our analysis. We said, we both find it, at first, I started to believe that this was true before he did. And he was trying to convince me that it can't be true because of the numbers. The sheer numbers don't make any sense, right? The basic math, just from in our heads, we figured out, okay, 740,000 Bitcoins are 750, whatever, 744,000 Bitcoins since malleability became known in 2011, right? That's about 20,000 Bitcoins per month. Figure 675, 680 Bitcoins per day. Even at the current prices, that's over $300,000 per day. That's just not the kind of money that you misplace and don't notice.
Seriously.
Even if we give the hacker credit and suggest that they've been doing it since the day Gox opened, the first day that Gox opened, that's still $250,000, $250,000 per day. In all fairness, the hackers could have probably taken a lot more coins when they were less valuable and dialed it back now that the USD per coin is higher. Figure like it wasn't just a specific amount per day. But it still works out to an average at about 409 coins per day if they started the day Gox opened up shop. Even when the coins were 5 cents, that's still almost $1,000 per month their books didn't balance by. And I know that the Japanese Financial Service Authority was auditing your books monthly. We're talking about 6% of all coins in existence, or 10 times the amount of money in any known Bitcoin address. If they've stolen that much money over that time, I'm just thinking the law of average has to kick in. And then you're buying the median market price for the entire 4-year span, which is like what, $90 per coin, $95 per coin, at a daily take of like $48,000, $48,000. So if they stole $40,000 worth of BTC for Gox every day for 4 years, you arrive at 744,000 Bitcoin. And no one can say that they've stolen the bulk of it right at the start, because that amount of Bitcoin didn't even exist at the time.
The idea that they could have had their entire cold storage system exhausted due to a leak in their accounting system, because really that's what we're talking about when it comes to this hot wallet leak theory, is that because of a mismatch in the accounting, the cold storage transfers were overfunding the hot wallet or something like that. That really seems to be a weak point. And just the idea that they simply could have had that much stolen, literally their entire stock of Bitcoin stolen without knowing about it. I got to imagine that at some point in their security chain, somebody has to spot check a paper wallet and discover that, there's nothing here. And on none of the other systems either. I mean, right?
Doesn't make any sense.
I appreciate that human incompetence really can reach incredible bounds, but this seems beyond.
I ran a company. I know exactly what it feels like to be not in control of your finances. It's difficult. You're moving so much money around that you have no idea what's happening. But to lose that kind of money, we were doing $600,000 a day in volume at BitInstant. If we had lost even $1,000, we would have known. We may not have known how much money we were making or losing on one given day, but we still balance our books at the end of the month. We had some sort of hold on it. MountGox was 20 times more funded and had a team that was a lot older, more experienced, and much larger than my team at BitInstant. I didn't even have a CFO. I was the CFO. That's how much it tells you that how bad it was.
Another part of this plan is that Mark Karpeles is going to step down. He's been the CEO since he purchased it from Jeb McCaleb 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So they purchased it 4 years ago. He's been the CEO from that point. Really, he feels more like an engineer to me. He feels like a technical guy who's sort of avoiding confrontation. And so that kind of makes sense to me. What I don't understand is why.
There are things that we're not being told. There are missing pieces. And the missing pieces are showing us that this whole thing doesn't make sense. And we're going to come to conclusions that probably with the missing pieces, our conclusions are wrong. There are things that we don't know. And honestly, we would have never known about this. Because if this document didn't leak, I'm hoping that MountGox would have gotten a buyer. The buyer would have recapitalized MountGox or recapitalized it enough to continue being a Ponzi scheme. Because if you look, and I hate to use that word loosely, but if you look at the past, if they really didn't have all this money, MountGox was being a Ponzi scheme. They were delaying withdrawals, right? And they're delaying withdrawals because they needed to wait for money to come in. And that's what essentially a Ponzi scheme is. They probably would have been recapitalized enough, even a few million, to be able to speed up withdrawals a little bit and give people their, the Bitcoins that they wanted back.
I think that I have people, it's really funny. People are freaking out. I have people who are telling me that they have their funds for their startup kept in Bitcoin, and they're like, I got to sell it all now to make sure that I don't go down with the ship. And these are people who believe in the vision, and who understand that what's going on right now is not going to be the end. And yet there's this fear that because the media is going to see this failure, they're going to crucify Bitcoin. I'm not that concerned about that. Like, I haven't sold any. I'm intentionally exposing myself to risk, and I'm not sure if that's going to wind up paying off for me. But at the same time, this feels like it's nothing but a transitory problem, because this will go away. This will eventually end.
If everyone sells Bitcoin today and there's only 2 Bitcoins left in existence, and you and I, Adam, decide to start our own financial institution, one in California and one in New York, and we decide to use the Bitcoin infrastructure and use those 2 Bitcoins still in existence to be able to settle money between our 2 financial institutions, that already gives reason for Bitcoin to succeed and be worth money.
Yeah, absolutely. You're completely right on that. Again, it's about the actual service that you can provide with it. I've heard you give the poker chip with wings analogy. I think that's a really good one, because like, that's the intrinsic value of Bitcoin. It's whatever you can do with Bitcoin versus what it would cost you to do it with something else, and how much extra time it would take to do it with something else.
Exactly.
So those things are all still exactly true. It's frustrating because you just have to have a long-term time frame where you can sit through this sort of short-term nonsense where individual actors do things that then makes us all look bad.
People are really pissed at me right now.
Yeah, I bet people are pissed at you right now. But again, you're kind of personalizing this, and I think that's probably a mistake. You responded to him in a way that was, I think, appropriate, with skepticism. And we still don't know if this is legit. It's hard to tell when you got truth mixed in with lies, and that really is what this feels like to me, because there are parts of it that work, but there are other parts of it that don't really make any sense.
CryptoKit is the world's first Chrome browser Bitcoin wallet. It's the easiest, fastest Bitcoin wallet payment system. With a simple one-click install, it takes just seconds to get your wallet set up. And because CryptoKit finds the address and payment for you, there's no more fussing around or tab switching. CryptoKit is more than just a wallet. It comes with a preloaded PGP encrypted social network, news feeds from Reddit and Google, and up-to-date charts from exchanges. Finally, CryptoKit Directory allows you to make 2-click payments with any of the BitPay merchants. Once you install CryptoKit, you won't need anything else. For more information or to download CryptoKit, visit CryptoKit.com.
Would you like to buy Bitcoin? Cash into Coins provides the fastest, easiest, and safest way to buy Bitcoin in the United States. Simply place an order online, deposit cash at any supported bank, and relax. Cash into Coins will verify your deposit and send out your Bitcoin within 24 hours. Join tens of thousands of people who have purchased from Cash into Coins. What are you waiting for? Buy your Bitcoin today. Go to cashintocoins.com. That's cashintocoins.com.
So this is our special midnight session of Let's Talk Bitcoin, part 2. Coming back, still joined by Charlie Shrem, and now joined by David Perry, Chief Architect over at bitcoinstore.com. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me on this tumultuous night.
Thanks for having us.
David, we were having a conversation about the numbers in this document that describes itself to be the MountGox Situation Crisis Strategy Draft. This is the document that was first revealed by 2-Bit Idiot, and that has elements in it that seem to be legit and seem to be confirmed by information, but then also have elements in it that seem to defy logic just because they are crazy. So let's talk about the financial assets and liabilities page. Charlie and I covered this a little bit earlier, but I think that it's worth going over again. This basically ascribes that MountGox lost, through this leak in their hot wallet, 624,000 Bitcoin. And that all they actually have is 2,000 Bitcoin, which seems like an awful lot of Bitcoin to lose before a guy notices. So
it really does.
I mean, like, this defies belief for me. David, do you think that is there any possibility that something like this could go unnoticed in a system like this?
If you just go down to the pure numbers, you're right. It's absolutely absurd. And if it's the 744,000 that the paper claims, it's something like 500 Bitcoins a day if the attacks start the moment MountGox starts doing business. That's obscene. It's absurd. How can anyone possibly not notice? Even back when they were, 5 cents a piece, that should have been enough for a decent accountant to have noticed something was off. When they're 1,000 a piece, that's obscene.
As we were talking earlier with Charlie, he was saying that they are actually being audited by the Japanese financial system on a monthly basis. So the idea that something like this could go unnoticed is basically just out of the realm of possibility.
I don't understand how anything like this could possibly go uncaught for this long. And, you know, the transaction malleability thing, they were in business a full year. That happened, so that makes it an even higher amount that has to go missing across a much shorter time.
Right.
You know, the paper said they lost it over the course of 2 years. That's insane. That's insane. That's, you know, the GDP of some countries.
Right.
Makes no sense at all. You have to notice this amount of money leaking. You're talking about 10 to 15% of all the money that you own leaking every day.
That's not a leak. It's a flood.
Seriously. I mean, that's like, you know, you have the puddle remaining and the dam, you know, is completely emptied and it's all gone and no one noticed the entire time.
Which leads me to believe, Adam, what I said before, that something is up here. There's something that we don't know. They're not telling us.
When you say there's something that we don't know that they're not telling us, does that mean that you think that they lost funds in another way in addition to this, or more that like we simply don't know what's up? Or the thing that I'm really trying to ascertain here is whether or not we think this is a outlier enough of a weird fact that this document probably is not legit, and that this is the point, is to cause this fear because it's doing a good job of causing fear. So
when you say not legit, are we talking about someone else outside of the MountGox corporation fabricating it, or someone within MountGox? I definitely don't believe that it's someone outside MountGox fabricating it.
So you think this is from an internal document from MountGox and not like the consolidation of multiple different assets coming from other documents and then having other things added to it? So you don't think this is a composite?
No, I'm pretty sure that this came directly from someone within MountGox.
Okay, so then, again, you must be right in that case that there just must be a missing variable here that we simply don't have, because I just can't fathom a situation where something like this could happen to this point. You know,
There's
and like the plan could just be formed yesterday.
And whether it's minimal fraud, whether it's ignorance and things like that, or whether they're just completely lying and even lying to their buyers over, or a potential buyer over where this money went. There's no way that type of money.
And if this did come from inside Gox's document, I have to question who, like, there's things in this that you don't put into business brief. Like, there's this whole paragraph about how Gox could go bankrupt at any moment and totally deserves to. Who writes that in, like, a business briefing?
Right. I totally agree with you on the business briefing sense. But at the same time, if you look at how MountGox has conducted themselves in their press releases to this point, this actually, it does kind of make a little bit of sense, because in the past, they've been very, very defensive, right? They've been very deflecting and, you know, putting blame on other people. So if he really is resigning, then maybe this is just, okay, fine, we did it. We'll be the martyr for it.
This document is basically saying we are too big to fail.
So explain that. How is it saying that? Because
it is saying we will go bankrupt at any moment. If we go down, then Bitcoin can possibly go down. That the reality is that MountGox will go bankrupt at any moment. And read it. I'll read it directly to you. However, with Bitcoin just recently getting acceptance in the public eye, the likely damage in public perception to this class of technology can put it back 5 to 10 years and cause governments to react swiftly and harshly.
But I don't believe that's true. Do you believe that's true?
Whether or not we believe that's true or not, because I don't personally, MountGox is like, this is an apocalypse. Look at the words, crisis strategy. This is a crisis. Bitcoin is going down.
Right, but this is a MountGox crisis is the point, is that it's a MountGox crisis. I mean, I understand why the media conflates MountGox and Bitcoin. That makes sense to me, because they don't understand what they're looking at when they look at a decentralized protocol that's also money. So they just attribute it to the biggest, earliest exchange. I understand that. I don't understand why MountGox believes that.
That's true. I mean, from the perspective of an insider, from the perspective of anyone who's been involved with Bitcoin in any real way, Gox has kind of fallen into the background more and more the longer we've been sitting here talking. And it doesn't really matter what happens to them once the media stops screaming about it. Like, that's the question, is how much damage is it going to do while the media is still screaming about it? Once they shut up, it's fine. They've gone away. Bitcoin will continue. Gox free, no problem. But how much damage is going to happen in that interim?
Mark believes that this will take down Bitcoin. And I even said to him, in a chat a few hours ago, I said, do you think this is the end of Bitcoin? And he said, possibly.
I don't understand why.
What they're saying is this. Think of it if you're in their position. You have a company and you're in it and you lose a ton of money. How do you lose a ton of money? I don't know. You're scared for your life. You have thousands of people's livelihoods that you just lost. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars just disappeared. What do? You say, we need a bailout. We are too big to fail. We need money immediately. That's exactly what they're doing.
So you think actually they're just telling people,
it's a strategy.
You need to give us money because otherwise we're going to take down Bitcoin with us.
Exactly. It's exactly the strategy.
So they're looking for fundraising with this, not with this document, but this strategy, broadly speaking, is to in fact bring in funders who can.
I think this document was circulated to people that were potentially going to be investing or buying into the company, and I think that's how it got leaked. Because the only people who probably knew of this document were Mark and Gonzaga, who probably created this document. And outside of them too, they probably distributed it to people, and somehow someone got hold of someone's computer and it got leaked.
At this point, we believe that this is a legitimate document, that they appear to have done something crazy that appears to have lost them all of their money, or at least all of the money that was stored in Bitcoin, supposedly in cold storage wallets, but apparently not. And that apparently they lost such a large amount of money doing this that it is sort of unfathomable, and they think that it's going to take down Bitcoin because it's going to result in so much lost money.
And now that you said it and you kind of outlined it out, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But yes, it does make sense because it's the only thing that makes sense. Like, it's so screwed up.
It makes sense until you get to that big number, that ridiculous. Like, I would believe this completely if the paper said 100,000 Bitcoins or 90,000 Bitcoins or 250,000 Bitcoins. This is like more than 6%, I think, of all of the Bitcoins that exist at this moment.
Well, and it's the majority of the money that MountGox has had. I mean, that's the real thing. This is a huge amount of money.
This is like you have to lose every dollar you've ever touched to get to this amount.
Exactly. You wake up in the morning and you say, uh-oh, all of our money is gone. But it's not like it happened. They said that it happened overnight. They admitted in that document that it was a leak, that it happened over time, over weeks. They said
over weeks.
Did you not notice it?
Over weeks?
It probably happened over years. If it did actually happen at all, who's to say that someone didn't take it?
It is.
This is only ridiculous in the context of transaction malleability. If that's the attack they used to get this, you don't steal that much with that attack and not get noticed. That's what makes it ridiculous. Something else happens easy.
Because a lot of people throw around that word transaction malleability. And I guess personally, I understand it, but I don't fully understand it. The only way, from my research, that you can steal money or hack into an account with the problem with transaction malleability is if someone is manually processing that order. Because transaction malleability is not a hole in the Bitcoin protocol.
No.
Transaction malleability is saying, here is a transaction ID of a withdrawal that you gave me, customer service agent, but there is no Bitcoin, so please resend it.
This is actually not the case, though.
At level 1 tech support, like before you even get to the tech support level, you may run into some kind of an automated system that makes what they thought was the reasonable assumption. Oh, this guy says he didn't get his money. Let's look at the transaction ID that we've captured. Oh, it's not in the blockchain. Transaction was orphaned. Send it. Don't even bother contacting tech support with it.
No,
not the way I would have programmed it.
Is it an automated system?
Yes, that actually.
What didn't have it though?
Yes, apparently they did. Apparently they had a system that this is my information too. They had a system that checked for the transaction ID, and if they found that the transaction ID was not sent on a withdrawal, then there was an automated system that was resending transactions.
I think it had limits on it, and there were other things you have to gain.
It's like your house being stolen from under you and you not noticing while you're standing there.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing that makes it the most ridiculous is that this transaction malleability thing, because of the way they implemented it, there's a limit on what that system's allowed to do. And when the hot wallet runs out, someone's got to go manually process transactions out of the cold storage somewhere. There's checks and balances with that. It's not even that ridiculous. It's more ridiculous. It's like your house being stolen out from under you, one brick at a time while you're standing there.
Exactly.
That's what makes it insane. How do you even accomplish that?
Okay, so I don't think that we're going to answer any of those questions tonight, but this is a very interesting time right now. Let's get a price from Bitcoin average and see what we look like. The global average price of Bitcoin right now is 0.459 US dollars per millibit, or $459 per Bitcoin. So if you are able to buy Bitcoins, then it's on sale. I'm curious, where do you think the price is going to go on this? Because again, like, I don't really care. I'm not selling any, but I might buy some if they go down low enough. I don't think this is going to have a lasting impact. I think maybe we'll see, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And then the storm blows over because again, the prediction is going to be, all the headlines are going to be, this is the end of Bitcoin. And of course, inevitably that won't be the case at all. This is just going to be, another phase, and then MountGox will be essentially cleaned out of the system, and we won't have that liability in the future. Do you think we'll see $100? Do you think we'll see, 2 digits?
That's a really, really difficult one. It depends a lot on what the media does with this story. You're absolutely right. The headlines could be the death of Bitcoin. The headlines could be smarter than that. I mean, the reporting has improved a lot.
Yeah. It could be the death of MountGox / the Bitcoin price on trading. But the world is used to impulse trading in a way.
It seems like the biggest concern potentially that we should have about the media is actually MountGox coming out and saying something along the lines of, it's us, it's Bitcoin, as they've kind of done, and say that this is the end of Bitcoin. If MountGox publicly says this is the end of Bitcoin, then I think that, that's going to get a lot of play in the media.
I don't think MountGox is giving up, honestly.
No?
They have Bitcoin domain names. They still have $33 million in USD sitting in a bank account. They're not completely wiped clean.
Right.
They still have money. That's a lot of money that you can start a new exchange with. They can do what Bitfloor did. They can say, we have 15, I forget the numbers, we have 15 or 17% of your money. We can give you 10% of it, or you can own part of the exchange. I don't think this is the end of MountGox, but I do think this is the end of the MountGox management.
It's not necessarily the end of MountGox, but it is almost certainly the end of Mark.
I just feel bad for him because on one side, I know him to be a nice guy with a good family and a good heart. On the other side, there's so many questions that I have unanswered. I don't know who else to answer them. And then it just screams fraud and negligence and ignorance. But there's no one else to really pin this on because who else was physically in control of all this?
Charlie, you've been in contact with Mark, and I think that that's something that is not true about most people. Are you able to ask him if this document is real? Because it seems like that's really the thing that we need to know.
The thing is with Mark is that I have his ear, and the reason I have his ear is because I don't challenge him. I don't confront him. So I'm trying to just tread very, very lightly. I feel like...
Can you just link and ask? I mean, like that.
I feel like if you read the logs of the chats that I've had with him in the past 4 hours, you will come to the conclusion and say to yourself, Charlie, he did admit that this was real. And that's why I'm inclined to admit that this was real. I've asked him things like, what's the deal with this document? And he says, it was circulated between me and some other people. He didn't outright say it is real, but he did say
that he didn't say it was not real.
Yeah, and he admitted that he knew of its existence before the leak.
Okay, well, that pretty much is a confirmation. Okay, well, that's really interesting. So then it sounds like we're not going to get all the answers that we want tonight, but there are definitely some questions that have been raised here. More important than anything else, I think, how exactly did they lose the majority of the Bitcoins that were under their care?
You need a blockchain, someone to really analyze it, and you need MountGox to cooperate with them because MountGox can open up their books. You don't just walk away with a $200 million theft.
And $200 million at these depressed prices, too. So, one of the interesting things is this call for regulation that some people have said might come out of this. This could be the rebirth of the CoinTaint proposal, too. I mean, like, if you think about it, this is the exact sort of situation that would necessitate the knee-jerk reaction that kind of makes that make sense in a wrong sort of way.
So, with the CoinTaint proposal is that the CoinTaint proposal that the coin validation company has been kind of proposing is saying, let's outright ban certain Bitcoin transactions and let's outright make it public which ones are green and which ones are red lit. But I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think it needs to be in the background. I think that process needs to be a constant communication between all the Bitcoin companies with law enforcement to actively be working on bringing down bad actors within the Bitcoin space.
With the coin validation thing, the coin taint concept, I would just remind everyone that Bitcoin was built to be decentralized for a reason. We don't like the central authorities that, normally tell us who we can and cannot do business with. So why would you ever take a system that was built to defeat that and then allow someone to tell you who you can and cannot have transactions with? You're taking something that was built to be better and turning it into the same thing you already have.
Well, lots of questions, not too many answers. I think that's it for tonight. Thanks for joining me on this special episode of Let's Talk Bitcoin. Charlie Shrem and David Perry, thanks again. Thanks for listening to episode 87 of Let's Talk Bitcoin. Brooklyn Captive was produced by Adam B. Levine and edited by Denise Levine, with Stephanie Murphy, Andreas M. Antonopoulos, Adam B. Levine, and Charlie Shrem. The Venerable MountGox was produced by Adam Levine, edited by Denise Levine, with Charlie Shrem, Adam B. Levine, and David Perry. Music for this episode was provided by Jared Rubens and General Fuzz. Questions or comments? Email Adam at letstalkbitcoin.com. Have a good one.